Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my monthly movie review. Today, I'm going to be discussing a movie that genuinely freaked me out. The Blair Witch Project. So yes, this is one of those movies that definitely gets a lot of hype and has a lot of hype surrounding it. And when I mention it, not only to horror fans, but just to, people in general, it's almost kind of polarizing. It's like half the group thinks that it's the scariest movie they have ever seen, while the other half, which actually incidentally includes my mom, they just kind of shrug and say, what's the big deal? So as I mentioned in the introduction here, I am definitely in the first camp, no pun intended. I totally loved this movie, and as just an added bonus, found it absolutely terrifying. By now it's well known as one of the first major, big-time found footage movies, and a lot of the marketing really went into making it seem like this was the case. The whole film opens with a simple premise. In October of 1994, 3 student filmmakers disappeared in the woods near Burkittsville, Maryland, while shooting a documentary. A year later, their footage was found. And yeah, that's the story, and the movie is exactly-ish how they vanished. As with many, many horror movies, most of the actual horror comes from the intensely stressful situation that the trio finds themselves in, namely being hopelessly lost in the woods. The disintegration of their camaraderie, along with such mundane worries as getting the camera back to one of their workplaces before their boss realizes it's gone, that's actually most of the driving force for the characters to absolutely lose their minds. So by the time the real threat comes along, they have less than a thread of sanity to deal with it. In a sense, it really reminds me kind of, like the cosmic horror type Lovecraftian protagonists, where they're doomed from the start, and the whole story is just watching them kind of flounder in this hopelessly insane situation. So, yeah. Now, truly, and again, no spoilers here, the thing stalking them in this movie has got to be one of the most successful horror movie big bad things I have ever seen. However, the later high-intensity terror would definitely fall totally flat, if not for the fantastic priming that the audience receives in like the first 20 minutes as the gang is doing interviews in the nearby town of Burkittsville and discussing the local legend. So the ambiguity of the entire film is what really also helps to drive the sheer terror at the end. The whole time as they're trying to make this documentary about a local legend, it's like, they're being given different aspects or different versions of what the legend actually is. The legend that they know claims that men had been butchered and covered in strange marks before their bodies vanished completely. But then one person tells them that she saw a hairy witch in the forest. Still another person claims that it's the ghosts of murdered children that haunt the woods. And, a note on this too, there are a ton of moments from this movie that I could point to and say, man, that is the scariest scene in this movie. However, after much deliberation, the award goes to this particular scene pretty early in the movie. A mother is holding her toddler and is trying to tell the filmmakers about the local legend, and as she's discussing it, her kid keeps covering up her mouth, like she's trying to say, stop telling the story. She just keeps saying no, no, and covers the mother's mouth. It's just totally freaky, and one of those really kind of subtle, just absolutely creepy, spooky scenes that totally sets up why, by the end of the film, it just seems so terrifying. Now, personal story time too. I watched this movie right before watching several Missing 411 documentaries. And then, for some stupid reason, had this fantastic idea. In the town where I live, we have this lake, and on the lake it's, dotted with these little islands. And so I watched these movies and documentaries, like, in, I don't know, like early February, I think it was, a couple of years back. And for some stupid reason, got the bright idea, I was like, hey, you know what? I'd like to walk across the ice to one of those islands. Live in Wisconsin, so the ice is pretty solid. It was only about, like, halfway across the lake to one of these islands that suddenly all I could think about was, you probably guessed it, Missing 411 stuff and the Blair Witch Project. So, yeah, this is definitely one of those films that probably kind of part to do with my very stupid decision. It's one of those films that really has a staying power with me. Just the feeling of being totally isolated in the middle of nowhere and no one really knows where you are or what you're doing. Is just, it's a really freaky vibe that this movie managed to capture very well. So if you enjoyed this review of the Blair Witch Project, please like, and if you're new to this field of crop circles, go ahead and subscribe to see what weirdness the future may have in store. Till then, you can keep up with whatever else I might possibly have going on my website, justanothertinfoilhat.com, and for exclusive content, make sure to check out my Patreon page. For today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off. Doing.